All right, well, folks, today's session is on management by the Greeks, and I have asked a guest lecturer or two to talk to us today, and his name is Tony Sizemore, someone who I've known for a number of years, who, just like a lot of people in the options game, they develop their own, style and approach to a trade that they're comfortable with, that they get good at, and they repeat and learn, how the ins and outs of it just through repetition, through experience and school of hard knocks and so forth. And Tony has developed his own approach, which is an excellent example of management by the Greeks. So Tony has prepared an example for us today, and we'll go ahead and let Tony go. And this will be sort of in the form of an interview of Tony to get his thinking and so forth. So Tony, welcome.
Hey Seth, how are you doing today? Glad to be
Great,
with you.
Thank you.
Glad to be with you. I was I had put together a couple of little slides here just at the beginning, just to show sort of what, in my mind, what the concept is behind managing by the Greeks. I mean, pretty much in most option positions, you are managing by the Greeks, even if you're simply using one or two of those, like delta, for instance. If you simply adjust an option or adjust a position at a certain delta, you're still managing by one of the Greeks, but not just by all the Greeks. So, to me, the key concepts of managing by the Greeks would be, say, to keep these ratios in mind, like your delta to theta ratio, your delta to vega ratio, theta to vega, and of course gamma, as well, which is probably the least talked about, the least talked about Greek of all, I would say. But I like to keep gamma as small as possible, obviously, because that controls your rate of change of delta. So anyway, that's sort of these different ratios are what I keep in mind when I'm managing positions by the Greeks. Now, managing by the Greeks, mostly for me, works best with complex positions, so what you would call combination strategies. Instead of having a single butterfly, you may have a butterfly with a calendar, or you may have a ratio spread with a calendar. And instead of managing those together, you just simply keep these ratios in mind, and that's kind of how it goes along. Just as a quick little example, this was a position whereby you can see that down here, you can see that I'm long delta, long theta, and long vega. So this is sort of the opposite of a lot of income trades where your vega is actually short, like a condor and stuff. But this shows you the different relationships. 307 delta against a 5100 theta. I like to keep my delta to theta relationship at 10% or less, and I like to keep delta to vega at 10% or less, which in this case you see that it's actually a bit more than that. But that's an example of being long delta and long vega, and the trade would look something like that.
So you like your vega. If we could go back to your different criteria for a minute, Tony. Why do you want your vega to be 10 times your delta? What's the thinking behind that?
Well, if I'm going to be, say, long delta or short delta to whatever percent, I don't want to completely neutralize the earnings potential of the vega in the position. So you don't want to, the object with managing by the Greeks is not to completely neutralize delta, theta, and vega, because then you'll just have a zero profit position. And,
right.
Each one would offset each other. Although neutral is, well, I'll show you neutral later. But yeah, I've found that certain relationships of delta to vega and delta to theta work best for the instruments that I trade on, a normal standard deviation. So,
I see.
So you're operating on what you determine where your standard deviations are based on implied volatility. And for instance, I know that if implied volatility is in the low 20s on the NASDAQ, if we go down 35 or 40 points in the day, I know that we're probably going to increase about 2 points in volatility. So I want to know how's that going to affect my position. So if I'm short Vega, I want to be short Delta. If I'm long Delta, then I want to be long Vega as well. So that way, if the market goes down, and vol goes up, it'll offset my long delta, so I'm not losing too much on the long delta.
So basically, the principle is if one Vega is going to be working against you, you want the other one working for you.
Exactly.
Well, excuse me, one Greek is working against you, you want the other one working for you.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we want to keep those relationships as we go back to here. We want to keep these ratios in mind, because that's what keeps your position in the middle of the road. Now you can get these out of whack, certainly. I mean, if you feel that the market's going to go screaming up or screaming down, you could certainly, and I do that from time to time, you can certainly have those out of whack. But for flying the airplane level, I like to keep these ratios at 10% of each other.
Gotcha.
Or less. So I'll show you move on from here.
So theta to Vega, you also want to be 10 to 1. And I know these are all, in the ideal world, and there is no such thing as the ideal world. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, yes and no. It's more the delta to Vega and delta to theta at 10%. Theta to Vega is a little bit harder to manage, but I like obviously to have that at about 5 to 10% as well, if you can do it. Obviously, the more theta you've got, and the more neutral delta and Vega are, you're in a pure theta type trade. But it's hard to do until much later in your position, as you get closer to expiration and you've got a very wide stance.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but here's an example of a trade that worked out real well. And the reason I want to show it, it's from 2010, but when we finish today, I'll show you the current NASDAQ trade, because it's pretty much exactly the same, in the current market. So I wanted to start with this and just show a good way to manage by the Greeks as the market made a big move. So what I did was, this day on January the 21st, I started out with a condor. Well, actually, it's not a condor because there's no longs, but basically I sold this straddle here, and
are there any principles that dictate why you are starting 29 days out?
No, none at all. Actually, one of the reasons this was started on 29 days is because this was the day I was in Colorado snow skiing. We were on vacation, and I'd been gone for a month. And a month, what am I saying? A week. And so I wasn't doing any trading, but I did have my laptop with me, and I noticed that the NASDAQ had just broken. I'd been watching the NASDAQ throughout the rally that had occurred since the March 2009 lows, and finally broke the trend line. So I wanted to be available to make a trade, because at this time, I thought that the market was going to drop much, much further. I thought we were in a bear market rally, and that we were going to go back and test or break the March lows. So I wanted to be ready for it.
All right.
In other words, I wanted some revenge from October of 2008. Let's put it that way. So you'll see. I'll just show you real quick. These letters right here, this is where this position started. I had another position prior to this one. So this letter Z is this position as it goes. And you see I started on the 21st here. So what I did was I started out like this, just to ease in here.
Would it be a fair statement that you tend to start this out roughly 30 days from expiration? Or is it
30,
going to be?
Well, between 40 and 30. Somewhere 40 to 30. It depends on expiration. It depends on if I've got a position in the front month, like this one.
I see.
I had another position in February before this one, so I started that one about at 40 days.
I got you.
So it just
So it's more driven by whether you're doubling up capital or not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sounds like okay. So it's 30 to 40 days out.
And you'll see before I finish this February expiration right here, you'll see that I actually start March, so I've got an overlap in there. But I just started out like this just to get started. And then
so you do a straddle, and your deltas are 8 on one side, 3 on the other.
I'm sorry, I just updated that while you were talking, but
yeah,
it was.
And, how are you picking your locations for your initial short?
Well, for those, I just basically put them out there at the at the 8 or 9 delta, just inside or outside one standard deviation.
Okay, so you do a naked straddle at under 10 delta when you get started, or at least this was the approach you used this particular month.
It's what I use this particular month. I don't always do that. I just at this point, that's just how I got started on this.
Gotcha.
No particular rhyme or reason. I just wanted to start collecting some theta, so I got started. And then what I did was, as soon as the market broke the next day, you'll see that we came through this line here. So that was the line I was watching. So we came through that,
right.
And during the day on Friday, what I did was I went in here and I added a ratio spread and sold some more of these puts right here because we had a big 5-point volatility increase that day. So basically I got my whole position, my whole initial position on throughout the day. But as you can see, I finished the day in a pretty decent little loss for the day. But that's because the market kept going straight down, and you can see you can see the here's the VXN.
That's the volatility.
Volatility index for the Nasdaq. Yeah, the red line is the spike for the day. That was the previous day. See, I started out with since we had an increase in vol. That's when I started the straddle, the naked straddle, to take advantage of a higher vol. Of course, I could have waited and got a higher vol, but one doesn't know. So anyway, we started out like this, and this is how we finished the day, and this is what the position looked like at the time. Okay. Now you notice the Greeks.
So let me just review the bidding here a little bit. You started out with the negative. Your original short on the put side was the 1625. Is that right?
Yeah, 10 of them.
And then 10 up at 1950, I think, right?
Right.
1950. So what you added was a ratio spread, the 1800, 1700, and did you add? And it looks like you added to your 1625.
I added, shorted 10 more of those.
10 more of those, and then you also seem to have bought 10 calls on that side. Now, what was that about?
What I did here was I just added a calendar way up here because I wanted to protect. If you got a real big snapback, I wanted to start protecting this side of my graph. In other words, you see that I'm leaning short. You see that my idea is that the market's going down. I mean, that's my profit zone. But at the same time, I don't want to lose very much if I'm wrong, if any. I mean, if I'm wrong, I like to make money whether I'm right or wrong. So you'll see as this position develops that this what you see right now is not the way the position stays, because what I do is I continue to try to improve my graph and keep my Greeks under control and get the biggest bang for my buck as I can without getting too leveraged, one direction or the other. So
all right, so let's take a look at your Greeks right now with this new position, just so we kind of get a sense of it. Your Vega, so you're very short Vega, and everything else is, and then you're very long theta, and that's it.
Right. Yeah, this at the way we ended the day here was that, you know, delta and gamma are non-existent. So I'm operating on theta and vega. Now we had a 5-point increase in vega that day.
Right.
Okay, so
being short vega is not the worst idea in the world, because if the volatility settles down a little bit, you're gonna get an advantage from that.
Right, but this is not the ideal. For me, that's not the ideal ratios. Okay, I'd really rather be shorter delta than I am. So you'll see the next day, you know, I start to make adjustments. Now, as I move forward from here, you're going to start seeing a lot more of these options change places, and I'll go, you know, I'll go through as many of them as I can to sort of show why. But then I'll also show you, you know, lest anyone think that I just went and back trader and made this position up or something. I actually went and did some snapshots of my account statements from this time period, so you can see that. So you can see that I actually had all these options in place. Just so you can see that. Okay, so let's go to the next day. Sometimes we have to wait on option view here. Okay, now, here's what happened the very next day, which was Monday. That last day was a Friday, so people calmed down over the weekend and the market stabilized.
Yeah.
As you can see, it didn't go anywhere, but just stabilized. But these short puts right here, which were about 14 or 15 on Friday, settled back in, and you can see that my gain or loss went from down 14 to only down 200 because that vega and the theta, the combination of vega and theta the next day really helped me out. Now you can see that what I've done is I've got my position more like I like it, the 10% ratio. You'll see that now I'm short 370 delta against, you know, a vega of 47 and 3,300 on theta. So that's about 10% roughly. So what I did this day was, I think the only thing I did was shorted some more calls right here at the 1900 strike. Now my position looks like this. Okay, it's starting to take shape.
Okay.
I want to be down in here, but I don't want to, and I'm going to fix this. My next thought is I got to fix these lines right here. So we stabilized. Now we're waiting to see what happens the next day. I think we kept going up for a couple of days, if memory serves me right. Yeah, okay, here we go. Now we're going up again. Position looks like this, but you see, we were right here yesterday. Now we're here. We're making money on theta and vega. We didn't lose much. We're very short delta at this point.
Right.
Too short delta. Based on the
now,
ratios that I like.
Short delta? I see.
Because we're short 20%.
Right.
Well, roughly, what's that, 18% of theta. So in other words,
so basically it looks to be what happened here was delta was working against you a little bit, but vega was working with you in a big way.
Right.
And that's, would you say the vega was the major reason that your gain loss has jumped?
Yeah. I think vega went down about 2% that day. Yeah. See, we've come down from 29 to 24. So that
whatever was upsetting the market on that Friday seems to have calmed down.
Yeah, temporarily.
Right.
Okay, so here's my position now. I've got to fix this delta because it's too short for these Greeks.
Right.
So we go to the next day, and I'm just using the end of day prices. These trades are obviously made during the day at various times. And it would be too cumbersome really to go in and go every 30 minutes to look at it. But okay, you can see what I did here was all I did this day was added a 1900 calendar. I was already short vega, so it brought me a little bit less short vega, but it brought my ratios back in line a little bit. And you can see that now if we start going back up, I've got some room, some breathing room. So the position's starting to look a lot like this. And our ratios are still
essentially, you entered into that calendar spread on this day, because you wanted to cut your vega and you wanted to get some more theta into the situation. And let's see, did that improve your deltas? It must have.
Yeah.
You got the calendar up at 1900. So it improved your deltas. It added theta, and it cut vega.
The main reason.
All goals it looked like you had.
Yeah, it basically helped bring all three of those into line. But the main reason, if memory serves me right, is that I was fearful that the market was going to, rocket straight back up, and this way out of the money calendar here didn't affect my vega that much right now, but it would as the market, if the market continued to climb higher, it gives me some staying power if I find myself back up into here and not down in here. So so we go on to the next.
And because you're so short vega, if the market climbs, vols are going to come down, and that's going to help you quite a bit.
Right. Now, we had a big drop. This is a prime example of why I wanted to be short delta against short vega, because we're down 47 points, and we made quite a bit of money that day. And you can see that I didn't do anything to the position, really, and it looks like this.
Now, let's see, you were short vega when the day started.
Yeah, you want to go back and look at it?
And you had a big sell-off.
We'll go back to the previous day.
There was a big sell-off.
And look at where we are. Okay. My vega is short 2100.
Right.
But I'm short 353 delta. So this is where
Let's take a look at the graph for a second.
Okay. Yeah. This was the graph at closing on Wednesday, and here we are. So as you can see that, as we travel this way, you can look down here and you can see that my vega is going to get shorter. I'm getting shorter and shorter vega as the market goes this direction. But you can also see that I'm starting out, pretty short delta, and I stay short delta all the way down to about right here. So
you were picking up delta brownie points all the way down, but the jump, you had to have a pop involved that day, no doubt, right?
Let's look at that. We didn't have as much.
That did not.
We didn't have as much that day as we thought. As maybe we. Oh, that's the wrong day. Hold on.
Yeah, on a day like that, I'd have thought with that much vega.
Yeah. It only went up like 1 or 2 or so. Look at it. Only finished up 0.75 that day on vol. See, it went up higher during the day, but then it settled back in.
So really, what was going on was you were picking up tons of delta during that day.
I was picking up a bunch of delta
without giving up too much vega.
Right. And gained all the theta as well, because I don't have it.
Yeah, how much theta did you have?
About 3,000.
Well, 3,000. So you picked up all the theta because you do that every day. You picked up a lot of delta. You gave some back on vega, but the position doubled in P&L.
Because look, we went down 47 points, and I started out short 350 delta.
Right.
Okay, winded up short 161. So if you take the average of that and say, I was short 200 and something deltas, down 40 points, that's $8,000. And
so that's 8,000. You only gave back probably a couple thousand on the vega.
Right, and gained
and then
that.
You picked up your 3,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So that's why these ratios, this is one of the reasons I wanted to show this trade, not just because it worked out real well, but because it shows how if you keep these ratios in mind, they will, come to your rescue. Now, we could have gone higher in vega, but we had already been up, quite a bit. If you look at, let's look at it just one more time real quick. I don't have any intradays on this, but you see that we came from 18 and we'd been to 29, so we're in the mid 20s here. So we could have gotten more. A bigger pop involved, but it didn't happen that day.
Yes.
So we'll go to the next day. Wait a minute. Let me get this thing going. Oh, hold on a minute. I was going to show you. There's the account statement from the day I started, but you're probably not interested in that. Here's from February the 2nd.
we believe you. We believe you, but okay.
There they are. I just want to show you. This is from February the 2nd right here. I'm not to February the 2nd yet, but I'll show you. Okay, go to the 29th. Okay, we're heading down again. Now, I made some adjustments this day to keep these in line. Again, see, we're still, delta to theta is under 10%.
Fine.
Delta to vega is under 10%. And theta and vega are about the same.
Right.
Okay, so we look like this now. Now you can see that I'm starting to give up a bunch on the upside here, which is not ideal. But that'll change. Go to the next day.
So the market continued to sell off.
Okay, and then I made a bunch of changes here to keep these in line and also to take care of all this upside. Now that's a pretty drastic change, so why don't we go back and look and see what I did here, so people can see how that occurred.
But Tony, we'll go through those in just one second. Isn't the key principle here to focus on that you didn't say, you know what, I want to use a calendar today, or I want to use a vertical spread, or I want to use a butterfly, or I want to use a double diagonal, or whatever. You just look at your Greek situation, decide what you want to accomplish as to your Greeks, and then you use whatever strategies are necessary to achieve your Greeks goal. Is that an accurate way of saying it?
That's a very accurate way of putting it. Yeah. So instead of looking at the market and going, wow, volatility's gone up, I want to put on a position where I'll benefit from a volatility decrease. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I want to have a certain range that the market can move and me make money either up or down, and I don't want to get creamed if volatility goes way up. If the market makes a big move up or down, I don't want to get creamed. I don't want to get creamed on vol going down or up, or losing a ton on delta. That's why I like to keep these ratios at around that 10% or below threshold, because then it gives you opportunity to benefit, from the theta and also from the vega situation.
Well, let me ask you this, Tony. If you are, right now, you are very short vega and short delta. If you were positive delta at this phase of the trade, would you try to get positive vega?
I don't know. I don't think that in order to do that, you'd have to do something along the lines of this. Okay, that's starting to get me there, but see, I'm still, these ratio spreads are dragging your delta. So, if you did something...
My point is that I was just saying hypothetically, is the reason you're happy being so negative vega here, is it as a result of the fact that you are negative delta?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so if the market, so I was just trying to bring the principle out by flipping it and saying, suppose deltas were positive, then would you prefer that your vegas be positive at that point and multiples of your delta?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't want your vega delta ratio just to be whatever 10-to-1. You want it to be in the same sign. You want it to either be both negative or both positive.
Yeah, it either needs to be both negative or both positive. They have to be on the same. What would you call that? The same side of the math.
I know. It's eighth grade math, and I can never come up with the word, but
this one,
I know what you mean. Either both negative or both positive.
This is I started out by showing a positive delta, positive vega trade.
Yes.
So if you're long, delta, you want to be long vega. If you're short delta, you want to be short vega. And that's because
the way you got they're balancing each other effectively.
Yeah, like, look,
Yeah.
let's say that Vega goes up 2%. Vol goes up 2. Well, I'm not losing a whole lot because I'm still short, delta. Not too far here. I mean, I'd have to correct it, obviously, because it would start getting long delta. But yeah, that's the principle.
And so what happened that day was let's see, this particular day the market was down, so deltas were working in your favor. Mm-hmm. Vega was working against you, and the principle worked out great.
Yeah, and we finished up another point, mm-hmm. On the volatility.
Right.
So, yeah, but it all worked out okay because, I was short a bunch of delta going into this big drop. So all the way down, I was short the market. Okay, so I was short the market, but I lost on Vega. But you see this? The Vega only went up 1 point, but I made 37 in theta, so I only lost 1,900 or 1,800 mm-hmm. on volatility.
I understand.
Okay, now, the next day, this is not ideal, leaving yourself open up here.
Mm-hmm.
So I make a bunch of changes the next day in through mm-hmm. here to bring all those, things into, to cover the upside. Let's just put it that way. Mm-hmm. We ended up going up that day, but you'll see that I made a bunch of changes here, and that's all just to bring all this in line. Mm-hmm. I can go back during the day. Well, 10 o'clock's probably too early.
Well, I think we could do it, but I'm just wondering whether at the end of the day, first of all, could you even recall exactly what your thinking was every 30 minutes,
No.
I mean, there were a bunch of changes that day.
The only overriding thing was that you see here we are at 10:30 on the next day and the market's going up. You see that my deltas are way too short. My position's looking like this. Okay, mm-hmm. I don't like that at all. So what mm-hmm. I did was I came down in here and adjusted a bunch of these things. See, I'm long 20 of these. That's where I'm getting hurt mm-hmm. right there. So I think I made, if I was going to adjust it right now, I'd cut some mm-hmm. of those and I'd probably sell some more stuff down here. So that's probably mm-hmm. what I did. Let me just go to the end of the day because it was a year ago. I mean, I don't know.
So really, if you think about what you just said, you'd cut some of those.
See, that's what I did.
Right. So you did. That's what you did.
Took out 12 of those and sold some more of these and brought my deltas. Well, now you see that's, to me, being long 20 deltas on this position is flat. So correct. Delta is now no factor in just these correct. Two. Notice how these two are almost similar. Okay, the one-to-one relationship.
Yes.
And there you go. So now you've got a position that's basically just making on theta because you don't know which direction the market's going to go. So you
right. Now I would have said, and tell me what I'm missing. If you take a look at your analyzed graph.
You may go back to that day?
Yeah, just go back for a second.
Sorry.
If you take a look at that, I'd have a concern, but I'm sure you have good reason. I'd have a bit of a concern about the downside here because I'm negative Vega and I'm basically neutral delta.
Right.
So a big downside move, you get hit on both here.
Right. You would.
Now maybe you had sorry.
Well, that's how I finished the day because the market was kind of like this. And this line right here was not there at the time. That's from, that goes up to the current market position as of today. But
I see.
So don't even look at that line. I didn't think it was going there. It just happens to be there now. We've come down. See, notice that dip, that dip, that dip, that dip. I'm sitting here going, I'm not banking on the fact that it's going to crash to 1,500, although I don't want it to. So I wanted to be flat at the end of the day to say, okay, I don't know which way it's going to go.
Gotcha. Okay.
And of course, you know what? This would be a good trade. You could close this out right now and say, you know what? That worked out real well. But the facts are, we still got some fight left in the month here. So
yes.
So I keep on going.
Yeah, well, you've got your heavy theta days. As much theta as we've collected already, we've got some heavy theta days coming up.
Yeah, and we gained some more here. Now look at my ratios again. Okay, 5% delta to theta, theta to vega. Okay, so vega and delta are neutralized for for a move that would cause vega to go up 1 point. I'm short enough delta to accomplish that.
Now, are you, Tony? Yeah, right. I mean, this is a situation where it's tough to get hurt. The market would have to do something unbelievable.
Yeah, because it's already made its move, and I've already gotten a very wide position. If you look at the profit zone.
Yes.
I mean, that's where I like to be, But I still think that...
That's where we all like to be.
Yeah, I know. I was still thinking it was going down, though. Okay, so...
Right.
But I almost killed my position coming up here. Let me see my note. When was it? On the 5th. Okay. So we click along like this for a couple of days where the market has, started its retracement. And I'm content.
You're short Vegas, so that was helpful.
Yeah, and I'm content to sit here because I know here's my floor, the solid line at expiration. So, if we keep going up, I'm okay. If we keep going down, I'm okay. It's kind of dead money right at the moment, though. But I didn't think it was going to last that long. So we go to the next day. Nothing changed. Okay, but we went down 51 points. Okay. So
you were short enough delta at that point.
Starting out.
So now now this is an interesting situation you're in here.
Right.
On this day, you're down 3,000 vega. Your delta is positive.
Right.
Your theta is quite large.
Right.
So this is pretty ideal from a Greek standpoint, isn't it?
Well, no, I would rather be this delta is way too long. It should be short at least the 165. But I started out way up here, and the market went down 50. Let's see, 85. Yeah, I was right here sitting here, and the market's gone this way. So you can see that the zero.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's starting to head this direction. So,
right.
So obviously that was not the best way to end the day, but that's the way that I ended the day.
Right. I'm sorry, I saw your vega is positive there. It was negative, so it's actually a dangerous way to end the day.
Right, yeah, it was kind of a dangerous way to end the day because there's your market heading south again. So you can bet that what was on my mind at the end of the day was, crap, I need to get shorter delta. And I can't remember, but I may have sold futures after the close. Because I'll do that in situations like this. Because sometimes, you don't get filled on all your options. You may not get all of them off like you want. So, you have to go with what you've got.
Right.
So I fixed that, though, I think, the next day. And I think this is where I almost killed my position. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, what I did was I overcompensated. Okay, now you see I'm really short delta.
Right.
Okay, but I gave up. You remember I had a lot of upside here. I gave all of it up to do that, and the market didn't continue down. It ended closing up. So I'm sitting here going, man, this thing's going to rip roaring back up here and take all my profit away. So I had to jump in there the very next day and fix it again. But this is the life of an option trader. You just keep trading it and fixing it. Okay, so now here I am. Now I'm back to neutral delta and letting theta and vega work. And look what, I brought all that back. So I'm not worried about that. Now I just want the market to stay right where it's at. And I can't remember how many more days I keep going along this, but there's a few more days.
Theta, as we're getting closer to expiration, theta is increasing because theta does that as you get closer to expiration on short options. Now it looks like what, you cut your position down because all of a sudden theta dropped.
No, what it is
to kind of
when I was looking at this one earlier, option view for the 9th, Backtrader doesn't have any prices. I don't know why.
At any point in the day? Or
no, at any point, yeah. I tried several points, so I'm going to go the next day.
All right, so this is kind of not useful to look at this.
Yeah, it's no good.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes Backtrader is not perfect in terms of prices. See,
I wonder if, just to give people an idea, maybe hit the Control W.
Okay.
See if, on that.
That fills in theoreticals, but for some reason my position's gone.
That's strange.
Yeah, it sometimes does that. I don't know why.
Give it a kick. Just kick it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still in here, obviously. All my positions. Yeah. I don't know why it's a glitch. It's a known glitch that we put up with. Let's just go the next day, and no points messing with that. Well,
now you're losing. Might it make some sense to close it and reopen it?
Yeah.
We'll just mark down
February 11th.
Business started on February 10th, say. Okay.
Okay. Now we're back. Well, let's see if we can get the tenths. Okay.
Yeah,
that's better. Okay, so what I had done is I basically tried to get, just very flat, on the graph here, as flat as possible. This is, it's not ideal, but I was still, you see that I'm still thinking the market's going down, but So
let's take a look at your Greeks here for a minute. You were short Vega. You're pretty long delta, but you also have tons of theta.
Yeah. Now, so they're all at that 10%, ratio that I like.
And the point is, and this is what, just for instructive purposes, if we could shoot back to the analyze screen, Tony. See, I want folks to see this. Go into that volatile change box and pop it, 2 points, say. So that's going to happen when the market is going to head down.
Right.
Right. So let's say you had a 40-point drop in NDX.
Okay.
Which would you agree? Maybe you get a 2-point pop in vols if that happens.
Yeah. Let me look real quick and see where volatility was, and see if that's. Yeah. Here we are at 25. We could probably get a 2-pointer back up in there. Yeah.
I want to be realistic here. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
we probably could. So
let's say you go, because I'm trying to drive home what I understand to be your thinking here. You get a 2-point pop in vol.
There's your 2-point pop.
And then you're down at 1710, say. So
right.
let's go to 7. Let's kind of scroll over to 1710 on the T+0 curve. Right. So now you're down a whopping $2,300 off of $60,000.
Right.
With a 40-point drop.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, the vol issue could go away the next day.
Exactly.
It could be back. You could knock a point off of the vol maybe the next day if the market just doesn't do anything. So you could pick that back up. Now let's go -1 with a 40% increase. You understand what I'm thinking? Maybe.
Yeah. If you went up to 90, I mean, I've got a floor in here. Obviously, that if the market, starts going back up into here, I'm going to probably start forgetting about my big tent down here because I've only got a few days to expiration. So yeah, obviously I want to maintain a profit potential up here, and I don't want to give any of it away. Well, necessarily, if the market doesn't continue like I think it is. But But yeah, that's why
here's my point. If you're down 1 point of Vega, pop the T+0 line. Let's go up to 1790 on the NDX. All right, now you got hurt. You definitely got hurt. but it's not like you'd be sitting on your hands all day either. Most likely, you'd probably be doing something.
Yeah,
but
I'd be
even
fixing
if you didn't do anything, it hasn't been catastrophic. You're obviously you're up big money, and you had a big move, and who knows, maybe vols would come out more than the point.
They probably would.
You think so?
Yeah, probably.
You put yourself in a position where no matter what happens, and to me that's the headline here, you keep trying to put yourself in a position where no matter what happens, you're likely to have not a serious change in your P&L.
Correct. And
Did
still,
you say that's a fair principle?
Right. Yeah, I mean, from an income trading standpoint, obviously the holy grail position is where delta and vega are zero, and theta is tremendous. so yeah, I mean, what you want to do is keep. That's why if you keep these percentages in mind, these ratio aspects, you keep the ratio aspect always the same, then you give your theta a chance to work for you every single day. You don't get robbed of theta, by a stealth move in vega or a move in your deltas,
That's correct. And that's a major principle, I think, for everyone to keep in mind. And it's true with really every income trade. My theory is all income strategies are controlling the Greeks. We just don't call it that. Like in your case, this is sort of an approach which is totally focused on that.
Right.
All the others are in fact controlling the Greeks, but they're done in a more standardized way, I guess.
We moved up 30. Just to show you, we moved up 30 the next day, and you'll see that I adjusted my graph so that I still have a little bit of room to stay alive for a possible further retracement, but it's coming to a close.
What were the moves you made to do that?
Let's go back. I think I got rid of a bunch, calls probably, or okay.
Yeah, it looks to me like you rolled calls, or
no, I think I left these because they're pretty much out of play. I think what I probably did was cut these long 20 down, and probably bought.
Oh.
There we go. Okay. This is, basically to control margin, but that's probably going to allow me to take some of these off the table. Let me see what I did the next day, because the position's coming to an end here. At some point, yeah, that's what I did. Okay, so I took out half of those, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
And what that did was it took away from the ratio spread, but it just gave me a little bit of extra, coins up here. But there comes a point in every position's life when you're going to run out of adjustments.
Right.
And this one's rapidly coming to that. I think the next day or two I closed.
Well, let's see. I just want to talk through that last move.
I'm sorry.
By selling off some of those puts, you not only cut your negative deltas, right?
Yeah.
You sold off puts.
I sold 10 of those.
So that cut your negative deltas by a bunch. And then you also picked up theta.
Right.
Right?
Because if you're long these puts, it's taking away from theta, and it's making you a lot shorter delta. So as the market started,
so you did two things.
Yeah. As the market started rallying up, you remember my position the other day. It was it was basically just going to lose money to expiration if the market went up. So as you said, I wouldn't just sit on my hands. I mean, we had a 26-point move. It could have been bigger than that during the day.
Right.
And so I'll still have plenty of room to the upside. But obviously, what you would do, Seth, in this trade, obviously, is if the market kept going up, you probably just go ahead and close it out, because the difference between this, where we are right here, and this expiration line is only $2,000 or $3,000, and you got, you're getting into expiration week.
Well, what I like to do when I'm in a situation like this on a trade is, I like to take a look at a 2 standard deviation move.
Right.
And ask myself, that's a pretty big move. That's a once in every 20 days move. If I get that big of a move, where will I be? And if I'm in a position where it's towards the end of the trade, there's not much adjusting you can do that's effective. And if that happens, is it worth the upside left in remaining in the trade? And if the answer is no, then you just shut it down. If you just close it. If the answer is yes, then you stay in the trade. And what I'll often do towards the end of the day, at this point in the trade, is I will shave. At the end of the day, I'll start working on the trade, setting it up so no matter what could happen the next morning with the gap, I'm going to be okay. I'll be looking at that 2 standard deviation move calculation, around 2:30, 3 o'clock that afternoon, and start working on the next day. I don't know if you do anything exactly like that, but I'm guessing towards the end of the day, you're starting to think about the next day and setting it up so that you're in good shape no matter what.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I do the same thing. Long about 2:30, 3 o'clock. Well, 3 o'clock at the latest, really. I start thinking to myself 2 things. Number one, I think, okay, how's my margin going to be affected tomorrow? Do I have enough margin if I have to make any sudden adjustments? Number one. Number two, I look at the standard deviation move and I say, okay, hey, if tomorrow's the day that we get that 2 standard deviation move, am I covered sufficiently? Not 100% necessarily, but sufficiently. Because if it only happens once every 20 days, you don't have to be 100% covered for it every day. You could be 90%. So yeah, you're right.
Right, of course.
I do that. That's what I do. Yeah, because you start winding down. I mean, the last thing you want to do is, step on it or step in it. At this point in your trade. So I think I closed down
when there's so little. Yeah, you always have to look at your risk reward of being in the trade.
Right. And here's a wind down. You see that I'm now winding down, and I'm pretty much done with the trade. I mean, I think what I do is I stay in here a day or 2 more, and then I just close it out. I'll go 2 days. I can't remember. It's not much more to see, but yeah, that's when I start closing it all out.
Right. So you're just starting to, and there you go. So that at this point, nothing can happen. Virtually nothing can happen. When you're winding it down, you're reducing your capital, presumably, right? And you just start making it less complex. Looks like that's happening also.
Yeah, you just make it as simple as possible, because a lot of times I use portfolio, well, not a lot of times, all the time, I use portfolio margin, and I can't necessarily just whack my position all at once. Like I can't just say, okay, I'm just going to cover this ratio spread in its entirety. I have to actually massage it a little bit for margin reasons. So yeah, I just wind it down a little at a time. What I do is I just start peeling off pieces so that my graph doesn't change. And that's how I take them off, and then close it down, and
and
that's it.
You were well over $200,000 in net requirements, which is really capital at one point. Now you're down to $92,000. But look at your Greeks. I mean, there's nothing going on with this position.
Right.
Now.
It's done.
It's
the only thing I think I did was in here is I might have come in here and sold these 10 out of here and bought these 19, because the rest of it, the 30, I definitely closed that out. I never ever take my word for it. You don't want to leave even though it's 1,700, it's 100 points away with 2 days. There's no way I'd leave that in there.
Right.
No way.
Yeah, there's no point to it. There's no point to it. Look how much you got. 20 cents left in it.
Yeah, and you're short 30.
You're going to risk.
So there it is.
Risk your family fortune for 20 cents.
Right.
It's not worth it.
So the next morning I closed it all out. So that that was a managing by the Greeks one that I wanted to show, because it was, I don't know why it keeps doing that, because that mirrors the position that I actually have right now. Albeit smaller size, but.
You want us to take a look at that one?
Yeah, we'd look at it real quick. Here's I pulled up Interactive Brokers, because this is the portfolio right now for this account. This is actually just one of my accounts that I have, and so it's all NASDAQ. This is I know it doesn't mean much by looking at it like this, but let's go in here and I'll show it to you. Where am I at here? Am I in 3 yet? Yeah. Okay. Is it raining out there?
In Philly?
Yeah.
Or are you talking to?
Yeah, is that?
No.
I thought I heard rain, like a thunder shower. It sounded nice for a minute.
I don't know. Must be coming in from somebody else's Wi-Fi or something.
Okay, this is my current position. Okay, and this is what it looks like. It started out much more like the other position, but of course it's morphed. You know, started with ratio spreads and stuff. I can walk through it real quick if you want to go day to day. But here's the current, you know, delta, theta, vega. Same scenario. You know,
right.
5 to 10% of each. You know, if the market goes down through here, I'm going to get an increase. But I'm also short, you know, delta to about right here. You can see this is the major profit zone. But this one also is getting short time. We only got 6 days left.
Yes. This guy started, would you started about 3 weeks before this, or 3.5 weeks before?
I think I started at about yeah, I think I'm on day 17 right now. That's how it started out.
Okay.
Just like that.
Let's take a look at this position as it started. Now, how would you describe it?
It's similar to the setup that I showed you before. It actually I started it this day on the down day, because see, we broke another trend line. If I were to draw it in, similar to back here. That's where our last trade was. So same scenario. I see, you know, I saw, hey, I can do the exact same trade I did a year ago. So I put it on as the market started going down about halfway during this day. And I did a ratio spread to start with, 3-6, with an out-of-the-money, you know, short puts, out-of-the-money short.
And you had nothing on, if I could ask you about February. So February was, I assume, long closed.
Yeah. Yeah, the February options, yeah. Yeah, that was a previous position.
They were long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one you started on the 24th.
Yeah, I was out of the market for a little over a week because I you know, the market was going up, and volatility had gone down. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait to see if this market's going to blow out to the top side, or if it's going to, you know, retrace and give me a chance to sell some premium. So it came down here and it gave me a chance to sell some premium. So I started.
Would you say, generally speaking, you like to start, the two examples you've given, you seem to like to start on high volatility days.
Right.
Is that
yeah, I love if I'm out of the market, or if I'm not fully invested in the market, I like to begin on, you know, a relatively big down day.
I see.
And the reason that is real simple, because we like to sell options when their premium is high. Now, of course, it can go higher, but it's a good way to get your feet wet. See, I mean, I've only got 10 and 5 short here. Well, 5 and 5 if you want to look at it that way, but and a little ratio spread to get started on a 70-point down day. And then same scenario as the other one. Okay, I came in here and bought some weeklies.
Some weeklies. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. I use those as crash control. Believe it or not, because this represents the weekly in play. This is for 3 days. See how far it takes me over 3 days versus if I don't have the weeklies. It looks like this.
Interesting.
You know, and the weekly is that. See, no matter how far, if the market were to just completely cut loose, if I didn't have these weeklies in here, I could be, you know, way down here.
Interesting.
Because here we are. I mean, you know, we could head So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so here's the core position. I'll just show the core because the other one, the graph gets crazy. Okay, so it's just similar to the other one. Remember how it looked? And I'm just going to go through this one. It's fairly non-eventful so far.
So you still have those the weeklies on?
Yeah, I still got the weeklies.
Do you keep refreshing those as the weeks die, or?
I do. Once that, not always, but yeah. I mean, I use them for margin control. I use them for crash control. You know.
By the way, I need to ask you: are these net requirements portfolio margining numbers or Reg T numbers?
They are portfolio margin.
I see.
I go in here and adjust my settings. Not naked standard factors. I adjust those based on volatility. I'll raise that to say 3 if vol's high, because that's closer to what it actually is. I try to get it as close to what it actually is, you know. Okay, so anyway, see, I added the ratio spread and added some shorts up here, so I'm building the position. Hang on. Let's get our core position. Okay, just like that. I'll go through this one a little faster because you can just see that basically, you know, I'm trying to control this. Now my theta, we had a big up move. Now my theta's not, you know, my delta theta ratio is out of whack, right? It looks pretty terrible. So that gets fixed the next day. Okay, so he brought that back in line. You know, fix that top of the graph. Same thing, big move down. Okay, didn't hurt us very much because we were short. We were short our delta and we were short the Vega. You know, and we're still pretty much in the center here.
Yes.
Let me go through a couple days at a time, okay? Because nothing really happened. I'd basically just sort of kept tweaking it as the days go along. Another big move up. Okay, that's out of whack. Delta's too short for theta. You see there, danger.
Yes, danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah. So fix that the next day. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, why didn't you fix that before the market closed? Well, sometimes in the last, 45 minutes of trading, the market may be up 20 points, so you don't necessarily have as much time.
Yes.
But as you can see, we fixed it the next day. Where's the market? The prices. See, we came down and back up. It didn't quite work out like as good as the other trade because we didn't continue to head down.
Yes.
Although we did that day, but
that was March 7th, so that was earlier, this week?
Yeah, that was Monday. Yeah. So
now you're starting to get into the heavy theta period on the trade.
Right.
And your theta delta ratio is in good shape. Here you are again, short deltas, short Vega. Now your theta is really kicking in.
Yeah, notice theta and Vega are 1-to-1, and delta is less than 10% of each one. So that's what you call them.
Now, why are you pointing out that theta and Vega are 1-to-1? What's the significance of that?
That's just pretty much how I like to keep that ratio. I like the delta theta and the delta Vega to be 10%. Okay, but I like theta and Vega to be no more than, I don't want my Vega to be so much more than theta that if we get a 1-point increase, a 1-point increase in Vega will take all my theta away. But to get a 1-point increase in Vega, we have to go down quite a bit, and I'm short deltas. So this to me is a great way just to manage that theta, so the theta stays with you every day. if you
Gotcha.
know what I mean. Which
I
you
do.
You
I do.
Okay, so what's today's date anyway?
Today's the 12th.
Okay, so we're coming up on the end of the week here. Yeah. So, yeah, this one's
Right.
tooling a bad vibe. Remember the other day when I told you I was having problems with my graphs? And that's
Yes.
an example of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something wrong with
Yeah,
that.
that's not right. It's always disturbing when that kind of thing happens. Okay, big down move.
Right.
But
now you've actually turned positive delta.
Yeah.
Well, negative theta towards the end of the day.
Yeah. It's
at the end of the day.
End of the day down 36. But if you look at the position though, this is the section of the graph we want to be in. So we can give it another day or two or three, and you see, and this is how we closed out yesterday. I think I fixed that delta. I hope I did.
So by the end of yesterday, you had both your delta and your vega on the same side of the ledger like you want them. Now theta is really, really kicking in by the end of yesterday.
Yeah, and I got a good.
Let's take a look at the analyze.
Good vega.
Yeah. So this is obvious. This is literally the perfect place to be. And this is the end of the day on Friday.
Right.
So, you've got, well, there's debates on this whole issue.
The weekend premium.
It looks like, is there is weekend premium a myth or not? I guess you could write an article about that. But it looks like you're going to pick up some profit over the weekend.
Yeah.
And, so this is this is one of those situations where, depending on what happens in the market, can I assume you might stay in this one, a little bit?
Yeah.
I don't see compelling reasons to get out of it at this point.
My goal is to stay in this one, probably till Tuesday. If we rally up, if we get up to this point right here, then I'm probably going to get rid of the ratio spread and convert this to either a condor or some sort of a flat line like the other position was, whereby I can maybe get a couple more thousand of theta, but not much more.
Right.
I see. Ultimately, I want the market to stay, right about where it is, up to, if we get to here, this is, next Wednesday. If we get to if I'm, to this line, anywhere on that line, it's probably time to close that position. But I'm definitely not going to I'm not going to go past right here.
Right.
So that's 25 points.
Will you either close it or adjust it, or you? Is that your thing?
I don't know. Since we're not too many, I don't know. It depends on if I can adjust it or not. I'll either close it or adjust it. I mean, it's been this is it's a good, the margin on this trade right now is about 130.
On using portfolio margining.
Yeah, and what is that? Is that 12%? Okay, what is
your return?
Yeah, it's 12% return over 3 weeks. So I mean, I've made my goal.
Correct.
But
that's better than a short stick in the eye, which
every day
actually leads me to some sort of summary kind of questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, when you start the position, do you have a philosophy as to how much of your capital you're going to start the position with? Some people will start positions with 50% of their capital, some with 100%. Do you have any kind of thinking like that, or is it more free form?
It's more free form. It varies. I like to add my positions in stages. I really don't like to throw the whole thing on at once, because what if I'm picking the worst possible time?
Right.
If I wait and the market's going down, if I wait till tomorrow to do the other half, can I spread out my, average prices and things like that? So no, I don't have like a 50% rule or anything, but I'll usually start it with about half of what I want to do.
I see. And then you'll add. Now, do you have a maximum margin number in your mind when you enter the trade?
No. If I've only got, I use I use about 98% of my available margin.
I see.
You know, not all the time, but
Right.
I will. I mean, there's plenty of times when, you know, I may have just 2 positions on, but I'm using, you know, all my margin really.
I see. And when you know, do you have a goal in mind at the end of every month as far as a percentage return on your account balance, or how do you determine when enough's enough?
My goal every month is to make 5 to 7% every month on total account balance.
Okay.
So if you have, you know, $100,000, for instance, and you're only using 75 of it in your position, and you want to make 5%, you know, then you've got to make more than 5% on the 75. You got to technically make, you know, what, 8 or 7, because that's the way I look at it, is on the whole balance. But yeah, my goal is 5 to 7, and you know, anytime I'm doing better than that, I get pretty trigger happy. Well, not trigger happy. What's the word? I get on a hair trigger to close.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And what about on the downside? Do you have an outs point? Do you have a number? Do you just say, look, I am not going to lose more than this in a given month?
I don't have any firm rule on that, but my behavior in the past has been that if I'm down 2 months worth of income, 2 months worth of my average, like if I'm averaging 5% a month, okay, and I get down 10% or down 12% or down 50, you know, that's the part where I tend to regroup. I don't always try to fix a position. I don't give up, okay, but what I'll do is I'll just say, you know what, this position is not working out. So I'll go in and try to figure out how to do something different, but I generally at that point, when I reach the uncle point or the realization that my strategy is wrong, and I make, you know, nobody's perfect, you know, I mean, your strategy can be completely wrong for what the market, you know, is doing, and I'll generally, if I close out, I'll generally wait a day or two. I won't just go back in and say, I'm going to jump right back in there. I'll you know, think it through and think if I even want to get back in the market at that moment, or if I want to trade that instrument. You know, I may look at something else, you know, other trades in different instruments.
Now, do you, so when you do shut trade down, no, let me rephrase. When you've made the decision that this just isn't working out, have you ever found yourself deciding that there's no way this trade will make money, but there's definitely a path towards reducing the loss?
Absolutely.
I'll take, yeah.
It's
that's important for students to hear, that reducing a paper 17% loss down to 9% is the equivalent of making 8%
on a new trade, right? Yeah,
a new trade. People get that, and controlling. This is all about your annual return, and controlling your the size of a loss is just as important as maximizing the size of a gain. It's exactly as important.
Yeah, it's you know.
Get that.
The difficult thing, you know, when I first started trading options, one of the difficult things for me to do was to do what you just said. Instead of just cutting and running, you know, to stay with a position and saying, okay, I know that my end result on my graph line, you know, my T plus, you know, expiration line is going to be below 0. It can be disheartening looking at that day after day. I'm not going to make money, but I'm going to, you know, try to get back to below 0, but not as far as I am. Yeah, I mean, you can do that. I mean, it's just like managing your trade when you're in a profit. You know, you're managing it towards your expiration line and keeping your Greeks in control. And yeah, you can, because, you know, look, the facts are that, you know, I make mistakes all the time. I'll
Right.
do something at the market. I'll get in my head that something's going to happen and it doesn't, or I'll over adjust or whatever. And you don't win every month. I mean, I can't remember what the longest I think maybe 12 or 13 months without a losing month. But, then I've had 3 losing months in a row, and not big ones, but, where you'd fight all month long, but the market does not cooperate. I mean, sometimes the market doesn't give you anything for your basket of apples. So yeah, I won't necessarily just close, entirely, although sometimes I do. But if you get underwater on a trade, I mean, I've spent, weeks underwater on initial trades only to come back and make money. I mean, sometimes that happens. Like it's like, for instance, what if you start out with a condor in rut on a low vol, and then the thing makes a series of moves where vol goes up 5 or 6 or 7% and stays there. You're going to be sitting in that trade for 3 weeks before you get back to zero.
That's right.
So it happens. It does, but
and that could end up being a profitable trade.
Yeah, but the one reason I like managing by the Greeks is that you're not at the mercy, like on a single strategy trade. You're not at the mercy of Vega being your sole nemesis or whatever. You can have those things work in concert with each other. And you know what? You can do the same thing on a single strategy trade. Don't get me wrong. You can, but what happened is you end up morphing that single strategy trade into something a little more complex, combination type thing. That's what usually happens.
I understand. Tony, just a couple more questions. Is there a way that you would feel that your strategy would still be viable if you had a philosophy that no matter what, you always had a long covering every short? Or is your success sort of predicated on being naked a certain amount of options every month?
No, I think that you could have every short covered and still accomplish the task. I'll use all kinds of insurance that you may not have seen on the screen. Like this is insurance way down here. This stuff.
Right.
These are covered. Plus, if you put some of your artillery in front of your defense, put a defense out here, it carries you.
Right.
It carries you for a longer duration. But a lot of times I'll use the weeklies as my coverage.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, I mean it'll cover you, give you a maximum loss. So yeah, I mean you see a lot of sometimes you see a lot of naked shorts with mine, but I'm mindful of the fact that you should cover those things either with weeklies or further out of the money, units or whatever. Right. And I think also that you could use this strategy with Reg T margin. You just have to. It'll take some trial and error though to figure out, which strategies you can use so that you don't, blow your margin requirement out of the water. You definitely can't use short naked options, but you could use ratio spreads.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I was mentioning it, because to the extent that we'll have folks who may not be utilizing portfolio margining, they're going to have to get those shorts covered, and I wanted to make sure that would not be mutually exclusive with utilizing an approach like this. So you're telling me you think you can?
Yeah, like for instance, on a ratio spread, and instead of just having a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio spread, you just have an out of the money butterfly. And of course, naturally, this, and any option trader that's traded for any length of time knows this. It pays to have insurance, even though it may cost you in your monthly. I have much more insurance on my trades these days than I did in 2008.
Sounds like the School of Hard Knocks was you graduated.
Well, you don't go into this business knowing everything, and you're not
That's
invincible. Right. And I learned a pretty stinking good lesson in 2008, and again with the flash crash, right. And that is that under no circumstances do I want to be wiped out. And yeah, so a lot of these trades that like the one I just went through with you, there's options that are off the screen that are way down below, units. You may have, right. 30 of them, 40 of them, and then the weeklies. Ever since the NASDAQ came, when they started using the weeklies in the NASDAQ, I use those a lot now.
I see.
That's a whole different theory we could talk about one day if you like to, about how to use the weeklies for insurance.
Sounds great. And
yeah, because
we love to
a lot of
that.
people think about selling the weeklies. It's got this allure. Oh man, I can sell options that only have 5 days left on them every week. The facts are that I find it's better to be buying those options. But you got to be careful. You don't want to buy them the day they come out. Long about Monday, they come out on Thursdays, and
right.
There's not a lot of volume in them. So I tend to wait till maybe Monday to buy them.
And there's more open interest.
Yeah, and plus there's just when they first come out, the premium's real high, but the bid-ask spread is real wide.
I see.
Yeah, so I just wait till there's more interest in them, or more open interest, I should say. So.
Gotcha.
But that's managing by the Greeks. For me personally, I just find those ratios that we talked about, keeping those at about the 10% level or under.
Yes.
In the NASDAQ. It may be different for different instruments, but
right.
You could go into BackTrader and test and see what you think your the ultimate ratio aspect should be.
Yes, it may differ. What Tony's talking about here is because NDX it's probably the largest instrument that any of us would trade, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's 25-point strikes, and it's a big mover. I mean, it's
right.
It moves 2%, on a regular basis on a day. So. Right.
It's a big percentage mover, and it's a huge dollar mover.
Right.
So for the SPX, for example, it's half the size, right? Well, not quite half, but it's certainly 60% of the size, something like that, depending on the market. And therefore everything's that much less radical, and the SPX is less likely to move 2% than the NDX. Now, RUT is, on the other hand, RUT is, what's it trading at these days? 820 or something, 830?
802.
802. Now, the RUT is almost a third of the size of NDX. But, it also has that, from a percentage standpoint, can get pretty radical. From a dollar standpoint, of course, it's so much smaller, it won't. And so you're right. Through backtesting and experience, you'll know what are the right ratios for theta to delta, vega to delta, and so forth in those instruments.
Exactly.
But you've determined in NDX that this 10-to-1 ratio works for you.
Yeah, I've determined in the NDX that's what it is, and you articulated it well. That's exactly it. You just look at the various instruments that you want to trade. Like TLT. I know a lot of people trade the iShares, the bond here. You have to figure that ratio, and it may be 10%. I mean, I don't know. You just have to know how. What's a big move? Start with the standard deviations. Go in and do an accurate. Here's what I would tell traders. Always keep an accurate, knowledge of what is a 1 and 2 standard deviation move in the instrument you're trading based on its current implied volatility. Yeah. Always keep that in mind. I mean, you don't have to know exactly, down to the, 0.10 or whatever, the 10th.
Right.
but I know that NASDAQ, one standard deviation move is usually between 25 and 35 points, roughly.
Daily.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can look at average true range. Just get your indicator and pull up an average true range, and you'll get an idea of exactly how much that instrument does move, statistically versus its implied volatility. It's another little thing to keep in mind, that's all. Like we don't have enough to worry about.
Yeah, but changing, this whole discussion was related to the NDX.
Right.
People do have to realize that each index, each ETF, each stock acts a little differently, and you have to get to know it. You can't put all this down, in a rule sheet. There has to be a certain amount of experience and knowledge, and you're learning. Have you stopped learning, Tony?
No. No, of course
I haven't
not.
met anybody in the options world who has stopped learning.
Well, the facts are that you have to remain dynamic because the markets do go through different, cycles and changes, trends, and sometimes, things fall in and out of favor, in terms of open interest. Although the main indexes are always pretty heavily populated with open interest. But
I'll give you an example. When I first started trading, the RUT, the Russell, was really great to trade, and the execution was excellent, and it didn't move too radically most of the time. And then all hell broke loose. I don't know 3 years ago, and I don't know if it was the rebalancing and they added certain companies into it or exactly what has caused this, but it is very difficult to trade now. And that may change. That may change, and NDX may become very difficult to trade. You don't know.
Right. That's a great point. I don't trade the Russell hardly any. I haven't traded the Russell in months, and then I took a stab at it and didn't like it again because I used to trade it a couple of years ago as well, and I've found it to be very difficult to trade. My strategies don't really work very well. And I can't figure out exactly why that is, but they do come and go. I'm glad you mentioned the Russell because I know a lot of people like to trade the Russell because it's got, 10-point strikes and, they just like it. There's a lot of open interest in it. But if an index isn't working, I mean, look around, look at the OEX, look at the, SPX, look at, different one, the Gold Trust, GLD or TLT or, the mini NASDAQ,
Yes. Things change. When I swore 4 years ago I would never trade one more SPX option till the day I died. And now SPX is the major instrument that I trade, because my trading style has changed, and I swear execution's better. I can't quite explain it, but there's no question in my mind that execution's better. And I will tell you that I think execution got a lot worse in the rut. And I'm not sure I understand that either. There's 8 or 9 exchanges vying for it. It's hard to understand, but it is. Well, Tony,
I agree. Well, you want me to go ahead and stop this recording now?
It depends. Did you have anything else you wanted to share in terms of your philosophy or your thinking, or do you feel that you shared it?
I think, in terms of our topic for today, managing by the Greeks, I think that I've, showed pretty much how I do it. I don't really deviate from those ratios all that much, but I would also like to say that just because I showed 2 profitable trades doesn't mean that, that they're always profitable. But in the long run, to be able to survive and thrive in this business, you have to manage your risk, and you've got to stick to, what you know. Don't go out into funky, you don't want to jump in here in the soybean market just because it's been going to the moon. You don't want to jump in there and say, man, volatility's really high, I'm going to put on a condor. You gotta be careful, know what you're doing by doing some research, trading instruments for a while. And
that's right. And the research is just the beginning. Experience trading it on low capital is is how you really learn the execution. If you have a flaw in your thinking, you can have a theory that looks great on paper and it's completely wrong when you actually try to execute it.
Well, you also want to test yourself to make sure that you're going to actually make the adjustments that you know you need to make. And you're gonna forget about saying, man, I hope that tomorrow it's gonna go down or up a little bit. You got to forget about that. A lot of people look at their graph and go, man, if it just stays right here, or if it would just go down a little bit, I'd make a bunch of money. Because some months you do. Some months it does. It just works. You don't have to do very much. Other months you got to work harder.
That's right. And some months you're going to lose money, and sometimes you're going to lose 2 months of income in a month.
Yep.
And it's all part of the game, but it's your annual return. If you had to base this on your monthly returns only, you'd have to leave the business because it's not stable enough in any one given month to know. But over a year, you should be able to make it work if what you have is a viable strategy.
One final thing I would say before we cut the recording off is that you don't have to do the same strategy at the same number of days to expiration in the same instrument every month. You need to stay a little dynamic, and keep in mind where volatility is and what the trend is doing to dictate your strategies.
It's a great point. And just as a final disclaimer, point of warning to everybody, what Tony is doing is quite sophisticated. He's not going to say that because he's modest, but it's very sophisticated. He's evolving it. It'll be in 2 years. There's no doubt in my mind, because I've seen you've been presenting for probably 4 or 5 years now, Tony. There's no doubt in my mind that 2 years from now, you will have added and modified your approach substantially. It's just the way it is. It's the way you have to be successful.
Right.
And so this is the state. This isn't something you just copy down what we say on this tape and do it, and you're guaranteed to make $60,000. It's not. Unfortunately, I wish it was that simple, but it's not that simple. It's the principles. What you have to get down are the principles, and this is a purely principle-based trade. Basically, this has to do with not I'm going to buy a calendar on day 32, and then I'm going to put a butterfly in there, and then I'm going to buy a condor, and then I'm going to sell a double diagonal. It's not like that. You have certain principles you're following, and then you're using all of the strategies we've been teaching the students